It's day 14 of Broncos training camp. The team's final practice open to the fans before packing up and heading to the Great Northwest to face the Seattle Seahawks in preseason game number 2. Hello, and thank you for joining us for Broncos Training Camp 2019 presented by Ford. I'm Phil Milani alongside Matt Boyer and Steve Atwater. Guys, we saw our second fight of training camp, this time between Emmanuel Sanders and Courtland Sutton. What were your takeaways?
My big takeaways were we were on day 13, now day 14 of camp. Most NFL teams, Steve, at this point haven't even hit day 7 yet. So I think tempers are flaring because it's been long days. It's been a lot of time in the meeting room, and when you're in that confined space next to guys, sometimes things don't go necessarily the way you want.
Yeah, tempers are definitely flaring. It's that time of camp. I remember one time I was in college. I got into it with a fellow defensive back, but later on that evening we were hanging out together. So normally athletes can kind of put that stuff behind them and get on with the business of their sport, and in this case football. And I don't think it'll be any lingering issues with them. Coach Fangio addressed the situation, and they went on and finished the practice well.
It is interesting that it's two players from the same position group. I think probably just a competitive situation there. Both guys wanting to be really the number one wide receiver this season. Kareem Jackson, he's a veteran, 10th year in the league here. He offered his take on the situation.
And there's different standards of starters. There's starters that are well established and need a certain amount of reps, and then there's others that need more. So, but our guys will play as many reps in the preseason as they would have if we only had 4. They're not going to get more. They're not going to get less.
And that was Coach Fangio there talking about the starters. We'll get to that in just a little bit because the Broncos heading into that first preseason game on this Thursday against Seattle. Hey, why don't we check down with Alexis Perry, who's on the field. Alexis, we might see Joe Flacco for the first time.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks so much, Phil. Joe Flacco was one of the guys who approached Courtland Sutton and Emmanuel Sanders yesterday after sparks flew between the two. And I think that's because he wants both of them on the same page prior to his Broncos debut coming up this Thursday. Head coach Vic Fangio, like you just said that he will start and he will be surrounded by fellow starters. They're not going to play any more. They're not going to play any less than they would if they only had 4 preseason games. But there is one starter that might not see a single rep this Thursday, and that's linebacker Josie Jewell, who took himself out of team drills yesterday, dealing with a strained oblique. With Todd Davis already out with the calf injury and Joe Jones out for at least a few weeks, fellow inside linebackers will not have to fight for any reps. There is plenty to go around. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alexis. That is a little bit concerning there, the lack of depth at that linebacker position. Won't be able to see any of those guys, so more Alexander Johnson, guys like that, Josh Watson. We know that they're heading to Seattle, one of the loudest places in the entire NFL. Steve, yesterday they practiced for the first time with crowd noise out there.
Yeah, I like the crowd noise. It gets the players used to making their audibles and that with noise, and sometimes you can't hear, so you got to create hand signals to be able to communicate. And also coach-to-player communication and coach-to-coach communication gets much more difficult. So I love the crowd noise as opposed to the music, too.
And for the rookies, last Thursday they had their opener in a high school stadium. This week, a whole different ball game.
Great. CenturyLink Field, known for seismic activity. It can get so loud up there in Seattle. Probably not going to get that loud for a preseason week 1 for the Seahawks, but had a chance to catch up with Noah Fant yesterday. He called CenturyLink Field a dope stadium, and he's looking forward to putting what he learned at the Hall of Fame game to use in his first road test.
It was my first game. Definitely, there was room to improve on. They definitely did some good things. So just looking forward to, keep working.
How comfortable did you feel out there with the guys? I know you guys have been practicing, but to put it together in a game environment, what was the difference?
Yeah, it felt a little bit different in the game. Obviously it's not the same as being out here at our practice field. So it's a little bit different, but just something that you get used to and something that you keep doing over time. So looking forward to that.
all the rookies on Thursday, Phil, went through a couple of growing pains, but it was the rookie connection, Rip into Winfrey, who capped things off pretty nicely. So they're coming along well.
Yeah, and you see the guys continuing to warm up here. They no pads today, and that's because they're probably doing a little bit of install just to get ready for preseason game number 2. Time for a quick break here. When we come back, we'll be joined by Rod Mackey of 9 News. Plus, we'll go inside practice with Cortland Sutton, mic'd up, coming up next.
The best Broncos banter each and every week, that is Broncos Beat.
When we even asked him about the defensive line and where these guys slot in, he said, look, I expect everybody to be able to play everywhere.
They're all in their quote-unquote contract year. That usually means that you play at optimum level.
Catch up on all the latest storylines with your favorite beat writers every Monday evening at 6:30 on TV 20.
For Chris, quarterbacks look at him before the snap and say, okay, I'm not going that way.
Broncos Beat for the most in-depth coverage of your Denver Broncos.
Broncos fans, sign up for the Broncos Fit 7K on Sunday, September 1st. The run walk takes participants through the Sloan's Lake neighborhood and finishes on the 50-yard line at Broncos Stadium at Mile High. All participants will receive a Broncos 60th Anniversary Finisher's Medal, a historical t-shirt, and post-race entry into the Broncos Fit Expo with players, cheerleaders, and Miles the mascot. Go to Broncos7k.com and register now.
Got some water, please. Appreciate it. Mouse, some Gatorade, please. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. Good job. Thank you.
Yeah, we had Cortland Sutton mic'd up, typically a very respectful guy. I like to say thank you for water, towels out there, but he did get a little bit heated with Emmanuel Sanders. We're back here on Broncos Training Camp 2019. Happy to be joined by 9 News Sports Director Rod Mackey. Rod, thanks for coming on.
Great to be on again, guys. Thanks for having me.
Rod, you've had a long-standing relationship with Emmanuel Sanders. You've done the Broncos. You've hosted the Emmanuel Sanders Show, as you affectionately like to call it, the Broncos Huddle. But when you see two guys in the same position group fighting, and when it's a guy like Ian Cortland, what kind of goes through your mind?
Well, I just would first like to point out that Sanders and I have never gotten into it.
Okay, good.
I believe he's a little intimidated under the guns under this shirt is amazing. Here's the thing. I mean, everyone's going to talk about the fact that it's 14 days into training camp. Those two haven't faced anyone else. Sanders won't for quite a while still. So that could have been part of it. The other thing is you've got to keep in mind, you guys remember towards the end of last year when Sanders was injured and Cortland was constantly talking about how he's got this increased role. He's the number one guy now. And that talk continued. And Fangio joked about it yesterday. These receivers are divas. I mean, there's no question about it. And I just wonder if perhaps that wore on Sanders a little bit. He was aware of that. Now, Cortland is saying it not when Sanders is on the field, so that wasn't a direct shot at Emmanuel, but you just wonder if there was a little bit of an underlying factor to what happened yesterday. And then, of course, it is heat of the moment, et cetera, everything on top of each other. But it was interesting to see those two being the guys that fight. It's usually Wolf and an offensive lineman.
Exactly.
It's receiver versus receiver. I don't know who I would have taken in that brawl.
I think Sutton's got the reach.
The reach, big reach.
Yeah. Sanders is feisty.
That's true.
That's
true.
Quick.
I don't know. And as you know, Emmanuel gets blown up all the time on the field and still gets up, salutes the crowd, and gets back on there. So
exactly. A couple of competitive guys out there. Joe Flacco is going to be making his Broncos debut on Thursday. What would be a successful outing for him?
I would love to see him do the typical one series, drive down, see Denver get in the end zone with a pass would be great, and then get him off the football field. I know last week was just the first preseason game, and I thought Kevin Hogan looked pretty good, but I think there is no doubt the success of this team, as happens so often in the NFL, is about the quarterback. Joe's been great out here. We've seen it. Now, temper those expectations a little bit because we were saying the same thing about Keenum last year, and that didn't work out so well. But I've been so impressed with what I've seen from Flacco so far. I would like to see him do the one long drive down the field and get off the football field and avoid injury. Successful. Bottom line, a successful debut for Joe Flacco is to come out of it healthy. Yeah. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Well, another guy that we didn't see in the Hall of Fame game, might not see in week 1 of the preseason, Von Miller. You know, he's looked so good out here in practice. Does he need to play in this game because of how good he's looked out here?
No. He absolutely doesn't. And that's why, honestly, I don't want to see guys like Philip Lindsay. I don't want to see guys like Emmanuel Sanders. I don't want to see Vaughn out there. I mean, it's silly to say that because it's on our air and I'm on the sidelines doing this stuff, so you want to see the best players out there. But I think we've seen over the years that they need a little bit of work, but not a whole lot. Vaughn doesn't need any. They get enough reps out here. Right. They truly do. So he'll get out there. Philip, keeping Lindsey off the field is going to be tougher than anything because, that guy's chomping at the bits. Let me get out there and play. Vaughn knows he's good to go. I think we'll see him at some point. I just don't know when.
Rod, you mentioned you're going to be on the sideline this Thursday. Tell us a little bit about the broadcast. It's going to be on Channel 20. What's it like working with Brian Griese and Steve Levy?
That's honestly the best part. The best part of it, and Matt and I were talking about it during break, is these production meetings we have before the games. So what happens is before the actual games, the morning of or the day before, we'll sit down with some of the players and the head coach and ask questions. I do this. I don't say a word because you got Brian Griese out there. And, if you're talking, face-offs and offsides and stuff, then Levy can chime in a little bit. Now, Steve knows this college football, let's be honest. But Griese, listening to Griese talk X's and O's with these guys is fascinating. And seeing those guys work together, and that tandem, I mean, they're great. They do college football all the time. They're going to do the Monday night game. They did the games with us all last season. It's really fun listening to those guys talk X's and O's with them. Plus, they also can bring that national perspective a little bit. Sometimes we get, you drink the Kool-Aid a little much here. So when you have guys come from the outside and do the games, it's great. Griese's honest. If Griese sees something he doesn't like out there or something, he'll call it out.
Exactly. We'll keep Rod around for a little bit here, but let's go back down to the field and check in with Alexis Perry. Alexis, we know that Von Miller and Bradley Chubb can rush the quarterback, but there's a rookie who's showing some flashes too.
Yeah, that's right. I'm sure we're all excited to see what the starters will do this Thursday in Seattle, but I know I am not alone in looking forward to what defensive end Dre'Mont Jones will do in preseason game number 2. Jones had he was the highest graded defensive player in the Hall of Fame game with 3 tackles and 3 quarterback hits, capturing the headlines and the attention of his teammates. Sam linebacker Bradley Chubb has become a huge fan of the 3rd-round pick, who apparently is having no problem adjusting to life as a pro. Take a listen.
I feel like he was first-round talent that fell to the 3rd round, so we got lucky. But he's been great out here in the preseason. You saw him doing this thing against the Falcons, and so I hope he just continues to get better each and every day. And I feel like as a unit, like I said, we're all a team. So if one guy's doing good, then we're all going to be doing good, and it's all going to make everybody look good.
Well, Chubb is no stranger to success as a rookie, coming off a 12-sack season himself. I would keep an eye on both Bradley Chubb and Dre'Mont Jones here on Thursday, because I'm sure one of them will get their hands on Paxton Lynch. And let's be honest, we're all looking forward to that. Right, guys?
Exactly. That'll be interesting going up against Paxton Lynch there. Of course, he landed with Seattle. Rod, we know what Von Miller can do. What do you think would be a good year here for Bradley Chubb, a sophomore campaign?
It's funny. We're actually sitting down for our pregame special with Bradley, and I asked him, the first thing I asked him is, so what happens if you get more sacks than Vaughn? How much trash are you going to talk? And he very politically correctly said, hey, I'm not going to say anything. I will, as many sacks as we can get together, but he would love that. I'm expecting a huge season from Bradley Chubb. I really am. I mean, he was impressive last year in his rookie year, but I just think the more that extra year under the belt, we see that jump from rookie year to the second year, and the talent this guy has, and the fact that I think Vaughn's going to be great this year. I think Vaughn's going to be better under the Fangio defense this year, so guys are going to have to key on Vaughn, and that's going to open things up for Bradley. I'm expecting a huge season.
The 25 to 30 sack number, with the way that combined with the way that Fangio is able to disguise defenses, is totally in play. We've heard it from a lot of people, and we've seen it. We saw it in the Hall of Fame game. Definitely expect it here in the next couple.
Looking forward to seeing what they can do. Rod, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet, guys. Thanks.
Rod Mackey, sports director at Channel 9. Alexis, let's throw it down to you one more time. What are you looking for today, day 14 of camp?
You know, I'm looking forward to seeing how Emmanuel Sanders and Cortland Sutton bounce back from their little scuffle, if you will, that they had yesterday. You know, those guys, they're friends, let's be honest. There's not a lot going on in that wide receiver room that they have to fight about. So I think it will be a good day for them as they head out to Seattle on Thursday. Back up to you guys.
All right, thank you very much, Alexis. Let's take a break here and wind down the show. Thank you very much. You've been watching Broncos Training Camp 2019, powered by Ford.